Separate but equal, the result of the Plessy v. Ferguson case and the rise of the Jim Crow South. With the Supreme Court decision in the civil rights cases that places of public accommodation did not have to be integrated, many southern states began to pass laws that allowed for segregation in businesses and other places. These were called Jim Crow laws, named for a minstrel character played by a white performer wearing black makeup on his face, called blackface. The Jim Crow laws allowed for segregation of public schools, public places, modes of transportation, as well as restrooms and restaurants. Realizing that political power was the key to African Americans achieving equality, local and state governments passed laws that included poll taxes, meaning voters would have to pay a tax in order to vote, literacy tests, where a voter had to be able to read a passage of something in order to vote, or grandfather clauses, which said that if your grandfather could not vote, then you could not vote. The Jim Crow laws also gave rise to a culture and a way of life in the South of the same name. In this system, whites and African Americans were separated in every way legally and socially. Any effort on the part of African Americans to break through this cultural barrier would have been dealt with very harshly by the white governments of the region. This system was challenged legally in 1892 when Homer Plessy, a man from Louisiana with 1/8 African American blood in him, tried to board the white first-class section of a train that was only going to travel inside the state of Louisiana. He did this purposefully to challenge Louisiana's Separate Car Act, which would separate whites and African Americans on trains in the state. Even though Plessy was only 1/8 African American and therefore 7/8 white, he was still considered an African American in the state of Louisiana and therefore required to ride in the colored car. He took the case to state court, where the judge, John Howard Ferguson, ruled that because the train operated entirely within the state of Louisiana, it was not subject to the equality imposed by the 14th Amendment, and therefore could make Plessy sit in the colored car. Plessy appealed his case to the Supreme Court, which ruled in 1896 that the state of Louisiana had in no way violated the rights of Homer Plessy, and stated that separating the races did not make African Americans second-class citizens. The ruling of the court of separate but equal stated that as long as states provided equal access to buildings and places of public accommodation and equal facilities for whites and African Americans, those things could in fact be separated. The problem with the decision was that separate could not in any way be equal, but this was something that would take African Americans until well into the 20th century to convince the people of the United States was true.